Friday morning, January 26, 2024. Best baseball player of the year, 1991. Three guys tied with two categories each. I have 13 offensive categories. I see who wins the most categories. Three of them, two each. Frank Thomas, Hall of Fame. Paul Molitor, Hall of Fame. And Cecil Fielder, not in the Hall of Fame, but he won 1990. So he goes back to back. How about that? Cecil Fielder. Where do they win? Paul Molitor had the most hits, 216, and the most runs scored, 133. Two categories. Cecil Fielder, home runs, 44, and runs batted in, 133. You know, last 1999, he won the home run and RBI, so he goes back-to-back in home runs and RBIs. But just two categories. And Frank Thomas, on base, 453, and walks, 138. So he's got two categories. That's my criteria. And if guys tie, I'm going to give it to all three of them. Even though, who had the best year? It's hard to say. Is it batting average? Is it home runs? Is it RBIs? Is it on base? Is it walks, slugging? Since they all have two categories each, you can look at all three of those guys and say, hey, 1991, they had good years. Let's look at their years. Cecil Fielder. Let's look at Frank Thomas first. He's in the Baseball Hall of Fame. Played 19 years, 2,300 games. Had 2,468 hits. Good. 521 homers. Very good. 1,700 RBIs. Good. And almost 1,500 runs scored. Good. And I like this. Frank Thomas, 301 career batting average. How about that? How about the combination of 500 homers and a 300 career batting average? Not too many guys can have that claim. 1991, plays 158 games, 104 runs scored, 178 hits, 32 homers, 109 RBIs. So he has 100 runs scored and 100 RBIs, and bats .318. I got four things I like with a player for a certain year. 100 runs scored, 200 hits, 100 RBIs, and over 300 batting average. Frank Thomas had three of the four. He had the 108 runs scored, 104, let's see, I got it. 104 runs scored, 109 RBIs, and 318 batting average. But he only had 178 hits. If he had 200 hits, he would have had the four out that I like. He's deserving Hall of Fame, Frank Thomas. 500 homers and a 301 career batting average. Very good. Paul Molitor, Hall of Fame. 1991 season. 158 games. 665 at-bats. Listen to this. 216 hits. And 133 runs scored. How about that? He's on base. But in the RBIs, only 75. Not enough. He's got to have 100 RBIs. If you have 216 hits, don't you think you could get 100 RBIs? He batted .325. That's very good. So he leads the league in hits and runs scored. Did not have 100 RBI. But you know what? He's a Hall of Famer. Why? 21 years, 2,683 games, and 3,319 hits. It's a very good ratio of hits per game played, like 1.12 hits per game played. He had 600 more hits than games played. 3,319. Listen to this. 306 career. He's Hall of Fame. And how about this? 605 doubles. You only had 234 homers, but 600 doubles? I mean, if you can get 500 doubles in your career, you're good. He's got 600. Paul Molitor, deserving Hall of Fame. He had 10,835 at bats, and he maintains 306 career. Excellent. And the other guy, 1991, Cecil Fielder goes back to back. He won 1990. 1991, he plays every day. How about that for a big guy? 102 runs scored. Good. 133 RBIs. Good. But he only batted .261. Not so good. And he only had 163 hits. Not good. His career batting average is .255. He had 319 homers and 1,000 RBIs, but he only played 13 years, gave it up at age 34, so he's not in the Hall of Fame. Was he on pace? The other 6 years, he may have gotten to 500 homers if he was slugging the way he was. He had 51 homers in 1990, and then he comes back and hits 44. But after that, he tailed off. 35, 30, 28, 31, 39, 26, and then 13 toward the end. Not a Hall of Famer. Cecil Fielder. But in those 2 years, listen to this. In a 3-year period, he had 132 RBI, 133, and then 124 in 3 years. That's about 500 RBIs in a 3-year period. That's very productive. None of these guys got the 4 things I wanted. None of them. Thomas came the closest. Thomas had the 100 runs scored, 100 RBIs, and he had the 300 batting average, but he had 178 hits. Not good enough. Molitor, he had only 2. He had the run scored, 133, and then he had the 300 batting average. But he fell short in RBIs. Let's see, look at Molitor again. Paul Molitor, 1991. Yeah, he had the run scored, and he had the 216 hits, and he had the 319 batting average. Well, no, 325 batting average. So he had the 3. Thomas and Molitor had 3 out of the 4. But Molitor did not have the RBIs. He only had 75. And then Cecil Fielder just had the 2. The runs scored and the RBIs. That combination of 100 runs scored, 200 hits, 100 RBIs, and over a 300 batting average is what I'm looking for Hall of Famers. You know what would be a good thing to do on research? Which player had the best season with those 4 things as far as the highest number? Which player do you think had the most runs scored plus the most hits plus the most RBIs and the highest batting average? Those 4 things. I should do some research on that and see which season had the highest total and rank them. That would do some research. How would you find it out? Well, you have to go to the most runs scored in one season and look at the list and then look at their line across. How'd they do in the hits? how they do in the RBIs and how they do in the batting average. So you would see, for example, let's say someone had 135 runs scored and had 235 hits and had 145 RBIs and batted 350 or better. That would be the guy that, if you did the numbers across the board, would be ranked the best. I'd have to look that up. Maybe I'll do that on research one day, and I'll come back and let you know what I find out, okay? But for now, 1991 is in the books. 1992 is next. Guess who shows up and has a stellar year? Stay tuned. I'm out.